Reading for March 13th, Science of Mind, A Philosophy of Faith, A Way of Life by Ernest Holmes. Reading from page 437, paragraph 5 through page 439, paragraph 1, using inclusive language. Jesus forgives a man and heals him. Matthew chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. Now some of the scribes who heard Jesus tell the sick man that his sins were forgiven said he blasphemed God in attempting to forgive sins. But Jesus, reading their thoughts and knowing what was in their minds, asked them if it were easier to forgive or to heal. For whether is easier to say, "Thy sins be forgiven thee," or to say, "Arise and walk"? In order to prove his position, he healed the man, saying, "Arise, take up thy bed, and go unto thine house." This incident has to do with a great psychological law. If we labor under a great burden of past mistakes, we devitalize our body, and if the condemnation is great enough, it might render the body incapable of moving. Jesus, seeing that the sick man was laboring under a load of condemnation, told him that his sins were forgiven. This removed the weight from the man's consciousness, making it possible for him to receive the healing word. Would Jesus have forgiven the man if he had thought that God held anything against him? Certainly not. He knew that the eternal heart is one of love, and that the divine forgives from the foundation of the universe. Indeed, he knew that the divine mind is too pure to behold evil, and knows nothing about sin. God knows no evil. Why should it disturb any of us to be told that the divine knows nothing of our sin, nothing of our want, nothing of our lack of any kind? The tragedy would be if it did know. If it knew sin, it would be a sinner. For what the infinite mind knows must be. Sin or mistakes are outside the province of reality. Jesus knew this. He also knew that while people labor under the sense of condemnation, the burden of their thought weighs them to the dust. Being able to read thought, he knew just what step to take in relieving the burden of this man's mind before telling him to rise and walk. We should do well to remember this lesson. How often we condemn when we should forgive. How often censor when we might praise. What untold grief of heart might be relieved by words of cheer and forgiveness. Especially should this lesson be remembered in the training of children, for they so readily respond to the thought of others. Remembering that the Spirit holds no evil toward us, and that it is love, we should emulate this divine lesson and forgive all, that our hearts may be free from the burden of our own condemnation.